Hey everybody, my name is Mike Tomorrow, and I want to welcome you to this special edition episode of My Life with Asperger's. I know that some of you may have heard already that there was a school shooting yesterday, December 14th, 2012, at a school in Newtown, Connecticut that have killed 27 people. 20 of those were children. Now, what I'm going to be talking about is how do you tell your autistic children about this, or your normal children about this, because there are like topics that they probably want to talk about, and how do you tell the kids? My best recommendation is it depends on their age, it depends on their ability to take the news, ability to take their news. I know some kids are sensitive when it comes to news like that. They don't want to hear it, and they're gonna cry and cry and cry. And it's okay. Let your kids cry if they want to. If I were a parent right now and my kids were very young, I would not tell them about the event. I want to shield it away from them because they don't need to hear about it. But if their kids are like a little older, I would tell them in moderation. Well, I wouldn't tell them if they're going to cry and be upset about it. If they don't want to hear anymore, I'm not going to tell them anymore. But if they're like teenagers, I might tell them. Most likely I would tell them, Like yesterday, I went over to my friend's house that's nearby, and I was telling the parents about it, and I was talking to the parents about the event that happened in Connecticut. And I didn't want to say too much about it. I didn't want to say shooting or whatever. I just wanted to talk about it a little, but I was sensitive when I spoke about it because the kids were like 11 and 8 years old, and I didn't want to say anything that was going to upset them. I didn't, because if I did, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. Kids that age, to me, they can be sensitive, and I just didn't want to tell them about it. I just didn't want to leave them a mark for the rest of their lives. They don't deserve that. But anyways, I want to say that you gotta be careful who you tell. Some people are sensitive to stuff like that. I don't recommend telling children about it if they're young, because I don't want them to be upset about it. They can if they want to, but still, you shouldn't be talking about it with your children unless they're going to handle it okay. When I was young and I hear about the Oklahoma City bombing, for example, and I was like, what's going on here? I didn't have a clear mind what was going on back in 95 when Oklahoma went off, or even 1999 when Columbine happened. I didn't know what was going on. I heard about it, but my feelings towards that were like, I don't know, they were questioned. It was like, what's going on here? And I didn't really know what was going on. But in 2001, when 9/11 happened, that's when I started feeling like terrible. It was upsetting to me. 9/11 was the event that turned my life around. And now, when I hear about shootings, it's horrible. Especially this one in Newtown yesterday. It was like, it's horrible. It's upset. I did a video, you can see it in its entirety, about how I felt about Newtown. Just click on the separate video that I have. I'm not going to be talking about it a whole lot, about my feelings about it. You can see that video. Yeah. You know, when I was a young kid with Asperger's, well, I didn't know I had Asperger's until I was 22 years old, though. It's hard for me to comprehend these events that happens, you know? Like the Oklahoma City bombing. Like the Columbine shooting, you know? 9/11 I could comprehend a little bit. But this one that happened yesterday tore my heart apart, you know? You know, Aspies and people who have autism, if you try telling them what happened, they might take it the wrong way, you know? I want to be careful. You might want to be careful too when you tell somebody who's on the Asperger's syndrome or autism spectrum about what happened regarding the Newtown, Connecticut shooting yesterday. Because they might handle it in a way that you might not be able to control, you know? And that might be okay, somewhat, but still. You might want to be careful who you tell. Or you might be careful what they said, you know? So please, be careful what they said. Or be careful what you say to them. Because it is a horrible event. Just tell them that they are safe and that nothing bad is going to ever happen to them. Well, I shouldn't say nothing bad will ever happen to them, but say that nothing bad will happen to you right now. You know? Just as long as that the kids know that you're there to protect them, you'll be okay. You know? You can give them a hug if you haven't given them a hug yet. And tell them that you love them. You know? Yesterday, when I called my mom at work, and I told her that I loved her. Because it was something that I needed to get done. You know, I told my mom what happened. Told her why I said that I loved her. And then I told her about the news event and all that. When I told her, it was the first time that she heard about it. You know? She didn't know about it. So I told her about it. And I told her why I said that I loved her. And I was very thankful that I did. And I spent a few minutes talking to my mom. Because, you know, I needed to tell her that I loved her. Because you never know when I'm going to see my mom again. You know? I love my parents. I love my family. I would never do anything like that to my family. You know? Nobody deserves this. The 20 kids who died, you know, they didn't deserve to die either. You know? Nobody deserved to die. You know? But be careful what you tell your children about this, please. From my words to yours. Tell them that you love them. Give them a hug. Give them a kiss. You know, tell them that they're always going to be safe. Well, not always, but tell them that they're going to be safe with you guys around. You know, they'll love it. You know, and be careful of the ages that you tell your children. Please. Thank you. My thoughts and prayers go to Newtown, Connecticut on this horrible event, and thank you for watching this special edition episode of My Life with Asperger's.